As I was leaving for Miami, my wife told me there are butts everywhere. And she knows because she's been to Miami a few times. She's got a really good friend that's there. I did not know what to expect necessarily going to Miami, other than I was going to walk into a new stadium called New Stadium, and I was going to see Austin FC play Miami. And then apparently there were going to be butts everywhere. And I did not indeed see butts everywhere. I saw butts in some places.
The
Miami
places you
Beach.
expect butts to be, right? Not
Right.
like unexpected butt placement on humans. That's I just
Exactly.
want to make sure that
Right.
we're being clear about this.
Right. So yes, normal placed butts in various locales around Miami is what we're going after here. But again, I didn't go to Miami Beach. I didn't really go to clubs other than the club in Brickell where we had the night before Los Verdes party, which was very lovely. I only learned later that the front office was doing a tab apparently. So that was dumb on my part, but I guess also journalistically principled that I was paying for my own drinks, the few drinks that I had while I was
Yeah.
watching UT lose. Most of the time
they do that more often than people know. Like when, especially on away days, you find out that Austin's front office is like throwing a get together. That generally means there is an open tab. I do have to re-explain to people who work for the club occasionally. They're like, why don't you get a drink? And I'm like, no, I can't do that. That's not how journalism works. And they're like, oh,
Right.
really? And I'm like, yeah. For you, it's a marketing event.
Yes.
I'm at work.
but basically, so I was on kind of my genteel urbane, like I usually am on trips where I go. I did ride a bike. Part of the time I did rent a city bike.
Good.
That was fun. Got some Cuban food and raquitas and sandwich.
I would have been furious had you not.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And let's see what else. I found a wine bar after the game on Saturday, which was lovely. Kind of a patio New Orleans themed wine bar that I found in Miami. So and had a choripán and all that. So that was good. Did not get rained on. That was always kind of the threat. There were several close calls on getting rained on, but I did not get rained on the weekend. And we had a very successful draw. So I very much enjoyed the trip to Miami. But now I am in Corpus Christi for a work conference, which is a beach town just like Miami, but also not at all like Miami. There are butts nowhere.
Emergency podcast. They did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hell yeah, shut up, hell yeah, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast, where we talk about all the Austin FC emergencies. And boy, we have not talked in a couple of weeks. And are there emergencies or what? Moisés, how are you doing? You are not in a beach town right now.
I'm not. I'm comfortably wearing a hoodie indoors.
Nice. You're missing out. We're not.
Missing out or not. I don't know. I'm feeling good. The temperature is going to drop something like 20 degrees here in Austin over the weekend. Cold front hitting a lot of people, and I'm looking forward to it cooling off for a few days. But we can't cool off when it comes to the show, Phil, because we got a lot to catch up on. A lot to catch up on.
Yeah, we really do. We really do. Okay, so what we're going to do, I think we've got 3 games to talk about. I think we want to kind of breeze through these because only one is really fun to talk about. I just want to get some thoughts about what you saw in the games, what I saw in the games, what we think it foretells in terms of thinking about the story of the season and what kind of through lines we can put together in terms of the performance. Because again, even though these were 3 very kind of different feeling games, we are still now 6 winless in all competitions, which do include, of course, these 3 games we're going to talk about. So let's go ahead and start with Miami. I got to see that from the stadium. I got to see that through really weird press box windows that kind of had like a funhouse mirror effect, which is what I saw All-Star Gamma Biru's first goal in New Stadium through. That was, again, let's not let anybody forget the lore. Lionel Messi did not score the first goal in New Stadium.
Nope.
It was All-Star Gamma Biru.
Got to lead with it because it seems like league in-house media has decided to retcon history literally as it had happened to indicate that Messi scored the first goal. And oops, they just left out some words. It was social media.
First Inter Miami goal.
First Inter Miami goal. Yeah, the first goal. Well, not the first one in the stadium ever, but the first one, words deleted by an Inter Miami player. Yeah, right. I wish I could say I was surprised. Interesting having to bend the laws of space-time to try to conform to the reality that they were shooting for. I got to say, David Beckham's facial reactions on the broadcast following the end of the game, in the present tense of when we're recording this, in between the loss in Open Cup against Louisville and the away game against Toronto, I think it's difficult to time travel back in one's Doctor Who TARDIS to what the atmosphere was on the other side of that game. But I don't know that I had on any of my bingo cards David Beckham looking like they had lost a cup final after drawing to an away side at the debut of their new stadium.
Which may explain why Javier Mascherano has coached for less than a Scaramucci in new stadium before he was summarily dismissed.
Well, here's the thing: is
personal reasons.
Yeah, the official
personal reasons.
The official thing is that he left for personal reasons, but reporting that's come out from Tom Bogert, the ever reliable Tom Bogert, not just is someone who is an enthusiast, a person who cares about things, who alleges to have sources and alleges to do things journalistically, is a journalist, has sources, practices the journalistic code of ethics, says that there was strife. There was, the rapport between him and Messi as former teammates was such that he was able to handle Messi as a manager. But at the same time, there's only so much that I can imagine anybody, even if you were at one time or still currently ever the best of friends with a guy, the level of pressure that it's very apparent that there is for whoever has the gaffer job over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you were pretty encouraged by Austin's performance in Miami, right? As was I. I thought they were dynamic. I thought they were moving the ball. There was a big onslaught of millions of dollars of striker at the end of that match, but that's playing Miami.
That result combined with the LAFC one, I can't beat the drum enough for contextually before both of those fixtures, even among the most ardent Austin FC fans, very, very few people were rating Austin's chances at anything other than 6-0, 7-0 losses in both of those matches, flatly saying this will happen as prophecy, not, oh, this is my anticipation, but, oh, these are going to be absolute bloodbaths. And then those matches turned out to be what they were. Was it disappointing that Austin didn't get out the win in the context of the flow of those games? Sure, because it felt like they were going to win both of them at one point. But even speculating that Austin fans would have that to be their experience during either of those fixtures, let alone extended lengths of time during both of those fixtures, that's the thing that I've gently been trying to encourage people to consider. This is a game of ups and downs. Soccer is a game of mistakes. If you want to see perfect play, you're going to see it very rarely. When you do, it's great, but you're going to see it very rarely.
And it usually comes up in a highlight reel.
Yeah, exactly. What to you was on the other side of the result? What were you thinking it portended for the games to come? How did you feel launching out of Miami and heading toward Galaxy and Louisville?
Well, I felt like they had a more defined style of play. I thought that there was more of a philosophy that was coalescing. Nico talked about after that Miami game having a plan, and you saw a team that looked like they were executing fairly well. The defensive stuff at the end is concerning, but that's something that, again, that's going to continue. That's going to be something that plagues the team throughout the season. And I wonder at this point, is there a conditioning issue? Are they not able to close out games because they're all not able to go a full 90 as effectively as they should be? So that's something that I'm watching a little bit. But now that we've got the perspective of this Galaxy loss and this Louisville loss, I'm at a loss, as it were, to explain what all of a sudden has happened. Like, why does this team look so adrift just 2 games after they look like they were cohesive? And I can't quite put my finger on what it is yet, but I think one thing that happened, and we heard this after the Galaxy game, is that they do seem to be playing slower. Like there does seem to be a Josh Wolf 2023 itis that is somehow cast into the team, even to the point where Nico is saying things like ruthlessness and goals change games. I really wonder what kind of virus is infecting the team right now.
Here's my thing. I wish that verbally a lot of coaches were much more creative writers and they didn't have so many common phrases and adjectives and sayings that have become part of the canon that almost autocomplete out of them after unexpected performances and that sort of thing. Because I don't feel like the locker room dynamic, I don't feel like Nico as a coach is actually that similar to Josh Wolf. I have not seen Nico throw one of his players under the bus the way that Josh Wolf did, not just one incredibly notable time, but many times that he said in a post-match presser, Phil, I think you could have finished one of those chances. That's... You say that behind closed doors to your players, not to the public in front of the press about your players in ways that you know is going to get clipped and that is going to get mentioned to them on social media. I think that's the unfortunate part of there being things that are coming out of Nico's mouth that remind us of the only other experience of a head coach at Austin FC outside of Davey Arnaux's incredibly limited tenure as interim. That to me, that's in a moment where we are all grasping for how do we explain this? Here's the vine that I reached for, not unlike George of the Jungle, and watched out for that tree and swung from, Phil. The midfield is the issue, and I'm not pinning it to exactly one thing. In two specific, very recent cases, we had a midfielder come on and have to come in clutch, and he did not in either of those moments. I wouldn't describe all of the faults to that player, but that's definitely a contributing factor. Another contributing factor is among these stacked up injuries and lack of availabilities. It is among the best tenured midfielders that the team has for selection when Irvin Torres isn't sick, as we found out in the midweek this week. He was sick for a couple of weeks, and boy, could the team have used him against Galaxy and Louisville.
Agreed.
Oh my God. And that he does show as available against Toronto makes me hope that I don't care if he's starting. I don't care if he's coming off the bench. I just want to see him on the roster because the midfield is the biggest gaping wound that we've got going on, where there's only so much the back line can do. There's only so much the guys up front can do without proper distribution from situationally aware midfielders, which are there is a dearth of them available at present. That to me is what I have hung on to, Phil. What do you think about the midfield issues?
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, we did not think that Owen Wolf would be out this long when that sports hernia surgery happened at the start of preseason. Like, again, there was an outside chance that it was going to take this long, but it sounds like kind of some of the complications, the kind of scar tissue issues that Nico was talking about with Danny Pereira and why he was out after less than 10 minutes in the Louisville match, putting Sabovic on, which again, I think is probably what you were alluding to earlier.
Yes.
When you were talking about a particular midfielder.
Nothing against him, nothing against him as a person, but I wish I could characterize these last two game performances from him as anything other than suddenly a black hole came on for Austin FC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's not the way to rep one of the two team colors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can't just blame it on new dad sleep deprivation anymore because his kid's old enough to where his kid should be sleeping through the night at this point. So yeah, I'm at a loss, but yeah. And I don't know that you just necessarily though plunge Wolf into the lineup and everything gets better. Mm-hmm. I still think it's going to take a few games to fully adjust to that, because then where do you deploy Torres? Where do you deploy Nelson? What do you do about Azuni, who all of a sudden is, I think, thriving a little bit in that connector role? Does he still get to play that, or is he going to be expected to be more of a traditional forward if you suddenly put Owen into the mix there? But clearly would be much better to have Owen in the mix than to not have him in. So just, to complete the thought. So apparently the scar tissue issues that Pereira had, which is why he got sent off, has also been plaguing Wolf. So they're both dealing with something that you would think that maybe the high performance staff would know how to deal with. I just have questions about this. I've been covering soccer a while, and I've not heard about this as an issue before.
Yeah, it's a mystery to me. I completely accept the explanation, but I elaboration beyond that basic explanation. But I've dealt with scar tissue myself. I was a high performance athlete in high school. Like I understand various of these injuries. I've had some of these injuries. Haven't had the kind of surgeries, but have had teammates who have had the kinds of surgeries. And granted, that was 20 years ago, and a lot of different things have changed about the recovery from certain things. But I'm struggling to understand seeing the team as if like power down at altitude against RSL, suddenly be dealing with a crazy amount of humidity in a home game against LA Galaxy, and similarly just not be able to move the way that sometimes they have in recent memory at the Dynamo Stadium in Houston, where it is regularly muggy and humid.
Playing through soup. Yeah.
It's not like it is a surprise that they're going to play in some of those kinds of conditions, or that these things that in them being explained to us, we're told this is something that is to be expected. Well, why was it not anticipated by the team that's supposed to anticipate those things?
Right. The team that is supposed to be able to train in the heat.
Yeah. The worrying high performance issues that I've seen from the outside looking in, it's something that is not just specific to an individual match or one specific set of conditions. It's that there are a variety of different sudden unexpected weaknesses that it would seem to me are the things that should be plannable for. It's not a surprise that RSL is at elevation. It's not a surprise that the team is going to play in humid conditions when one of the in-state rivals it's always humid. It's always playing through soup.
Or sometimes in Austin, it gets humid.
Exactly.
That is a thing that happens. Yeah, so I don't want to belabor Tuesday's match against Louisville City. Essentially, Louisville looks like a really good cohesive team. Yeah, there is a talent gap between MLS and USL Championship, but this is a team. And Damian Loss told us in post-match that he did try to apprise the coaching staff about what to expect from that team. Like, he'd played with those players for a couple. But in the kind of ridiculousness of the press conference, and we won't belabor the 45-minute wait and the one question limit for each of us, even though I do want to mention that because I'm still a little salty about that.
A little?
I thought the interesting, yeah, a little bit. But I thought that, again, the second question I wanted to get at, Dante from We Are Austin TV kind of got at in Spanish, and I would explore that a little bit because there was something that Nico had talked about. Sometimes a team is needing to hit rock bottom before they can come back up. And my kind of immediate reaction to that was, why do they have to hit rock bottom? Like, John Gallagher had some really interesting things to say on Thursday about, first of all, just Nico to a fault falling on a sword for the team, not necessarily blaming the players, more blaming himself, which I think is admirable, but also this idea that other teams aren't relenting at this point, that they have to get back on track and they have to get points now. They know the hole that they're digging themselves into by being down 7 matches into the season. Again, they have 0.86 points per game. If you extrapolate that out to a full season, that's 29 points. That's 2 less than the inaugural season, which featured Manny Perez, who we saw as a fullback, actually, in that Louisville City game. Aiden Stanley, Freddie Kleeman, all those names that you might remember. Matt Beasler for a game and a half. Playing back those 2021 hits, Kakuta Mena, all of that wondrousness of a team built in the throes of COVID. And this team is on track to do worse than that team. So that's troubling. I don't think that's going to happen necessarily, but I am a little worried. And again, just this kind of idea, have they maybe in a sense already hit rock bottom, crashing out of the Open Cup in the first 90 minutes of Open Cup play, or is there still more bottom to go? Or just what are your thoughts on that? I just found that so puzzling that he said that.
It didn't puzzle me as much, and I think it's something that surprised a lot of people. And in a string of being so heavily winless, I'll say, it's not that there hasn't been a win. I'm saying that for such a protracted amount of time, going without a series of wins is something that does something to the mentality of the people looking from the outside in. It makes it really easy to stay in the pit because you don't get that elevatory feeling that you get from a win. That's just basic serotonin brain chemistry stuff. And for me, I think a phrase like rock bottom is something that immediately triggers a certain reflexive response for any and all of us. And it was surprising to me in a different way. It was surprising to me in the clarity of thought about it, where you have a team that showed that they could go toe-to-toe with two of the very best teams, not just in MLS, but in the Confederation.
Yeah.
In the Confederation. With rosters that both budget and, let's be fair, overall talent-wise, on paper, outclass Austin FC's roster. You have a team in Austin FC that showed themselves to be able to hang with the big dogs and then go on a shocking fall from those heights immediately right after it. And to me, the rock bottom comment is about what these guys think about themselves, where they just saw themselves have those two excellent, by anybody's measure, performances against two great clubs, and then play like DC United played against a USL League One team in Open Cup this week. For me,
losing in PKs after getting gifted like a crazy goalkeeper assisted goal.
The thing for me, and going into the Louisville game, I could have said this the last time we recorded, even, which was a couple weeks ago, before the Miami match had even happened. I actually did not expect Austin to win this match due to the combination of injuries and depletion in midfield and knowing that there is only so much rubber on the tires and they were going to run a lot of it off against LAFC and Miami. I was expecting it to be a bigger margin of loss than it was.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because here's the thing.
I thought they were going to win this, but I thought it was going to take a lot out of them. I didn't think it was going to be easy, but I thought that they just, on sheer talent and then just cohesiveness that we'd seen earlier in those LAFC and Miami games, I thought that they would be able to pull that out. But and I was hoping that the Galaxy game was just some kind of like weird humidity blip that they had. But now I'm not so sure.
Here's the thing. Like Austin, Louisville City on paper does not look necessary. They're a USL team. In the USL MLS divide of things, no MLS team should ever fall to a USL team. Yeah, but what if they are one of the best teams in USL consistently for 2 years running? That, yes, they have an interim coach, but it's an interim coach that has maintained the exact same system that the previous coach was running with most of the exact same players. There is nothing compared to the kind of group cohesion that you have among a team that is firing well together. They can be less talented players. They can be former Austin FC striker Manny Perez, but in the right system with the right guys around them, you can make a lot of guys really sing that on paper shouldn't be able to beat this other team.
And they have a system and they have an identity and they have players that know their roles and can function within those.
That to me is why losing to Louisville City, if they had lost like this to one Knoxville, yes, I would be gnashing my teeth and tearing things apart. And was it disappointing? Sure. John Gallagher said it in the midweek availability. He played against them in USL years ago. And years ago, Louisville had an identity and a consistency of things. Maybe their fans don't know how to show up to a match on a Tuesday night, but the ones that do are solid and they are there all the time. They are consistently that 12th man, enough for Louisville City to be able to perform, I would say, on par with solid mid-table MLS teams. And when you have a Louisville City lineup that is not beset on by injuries, that is playing all of their starters, maybe they're missing a Damian Loss, but if the guy's in front of whoever the Damian Loss is, then as long as those guys are doing their jobs, then the goalkeeper doesn't have to stand on their head the way that Brad Stuver does far too often. So that to me it's why that loss did not hit me as hard. And looking at the calculus of things, looking for a silver lining, that is one less set of midweek fixtures that Austin's going to be stuck dealing with as the season gets progressively more difficult to handle.
Right. Although that would be the fun set of midweek fixtures. That would be the moving towards something tangible and silver and shiny.
In theory, but you looked out into the distance as to what that path could have been, and
Yep.
that did not look less challenging than 2025 to me. That did
I
not
don't
look
know.
like an easy walk to the final.
Didn't have Nashville involved in it though.
That's true. That's true. But it's just, that's the way that I'm looking at it, is absent a time machine
Okay.
where we were in the reality where Austin was still in it. That's the way that I look at it, from the perspective of, this is a squad that's got a bunch of injury issues, that is straining under regular load as it is. And they need the round of 16 and quarterfinals off to get to the World Cup break in some semblance of healthy, so that they can take the best advantage of that break, where hopefully their midfield reinforcements coming in via the transfer window.
Yeah. I think also part of this is just purple jerseys, away loss, cup competition. I just got some serious Violette vibes in this match. And also Louisville got out to a 2-0 lead 7 minutes earlier than Violette did in the Dominican.
Yeah, I think that loss looms so large. Exactly what you're pointing to is what's difficult about this. It's difficult for people to shake off. I'm going to quote one of my favorite things, is limited sample size. We still have a limited sample size of this team's existing for less than 10 years. And so things like that Violette loss, one would hope that 5 years from now did not loom as large as it does. Because when something like that Louisville game happens, with things that feel familiar, like hearing the words verticality and goals change games and ruthlessness and that sort of stuff, it sure makes it a lot easier for that sense memory you're not kicking the teeth, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I guess the big buzz around the team coming into this match is this kind of theory, this kind of feeling, I think, among the fan base that Nico Estevez, indeed, that his seat is hot and that he may be in danger of losing his job if he doesn't somehow turn things around by the World Cup break. And I don't know how tangible and real that might be. Certainly, we know that Roto has a intolerance for missing the playoffs. And we also do know that Estevez is his handpicked coach. He did not hire Wolf. Wolf was actually hired before sporting director was hired, before the first sporting director was hired. It's a completely different dynamic. And this kind of leads me into, this was the thing that I was talking about during all the Wolf out stuff. It's that, okay, you don't just fire a coach to fire a coach. You have to have a plan. You have to have a replacement in mind. And you have to think about, okay, how can this coach actually tangibly make this team better? How is that going to be an improvement? That said, Wilfred Nancy is sitting out there. Jim Curtin's sitting out there. Vanni Sartini could probably be pried from the Canadian League. There are a lot of good coaching candidates that are out there right now at a time where maybe Austin needs that kind of reset. And Nico is great to talk to. I really like him as a person, but I could see where this recent run of results, if they're compounded by more results that are like this, would maybe put that question into Rhoda's mind about do we continue in this direction or do we go someplace different, especially with this opportunity maybe to get a coach that could do something different, do something better. But I don't know about his tolerance about that either. It's a quandary that we're stepping into.
Yeah, I got to say, my thing is, I think the concept of getting rid of Nico Estevez right now is a terrible idea. An absolutely terrible idea. I think that a lot of things are informed by the European lens of, this club would never tolerate this. This club will never tolerate this. MLS has so long been the younger sibling of bigger leagues in the world that I think that the criterion a lot of people who watch not U.S. soccer have is that this is intolerable, and for MLS to be a serious league, be a serious club, act like you have standards, go and get this coach. Convince Jim Curtin to coach for a non-East Coast team. Go ahead. I dare you. He's available, but does that mean he would take this job? Does bringing him in on paper in people's perceptions of Jim Curtin as a coach. Just using him as an example. Drop in literally any other great name that people wouldn't believe that people think would be a better coach than Nico Estevez right this moment. This is not me defending Nico Estevez individually. I'm just saying the prospect of replacing a coach 7 games into the season in this specific club, who is beloved by his locker room, even if you replace him with the Jim Curtin, who is famously a great locker room guy. Wilfred Nancy, also a great locker room guy. As great as they are in theory on paper, you do not fire a coach and suddenly everything's fine at a club. And people cited the new coach bounce. Sure, people can stretch themselves like a pretzel in multiple twists and knots to explain how the new coach bounce, that's what's going to solve everything. Fire the coach does not solve everything. I'm not saying
usually lasts a couple of games at most.
Yeah. I'm not saying that dismissal of the coach and finding a new coach is not something that, depending on how the season goes, that it could not improve things. But I tell you what, I mean, a coach getting directly asked about whether his seat is hot or not at We Are Austin asked him in the midweek and responding completely unflappably. Of course, I should always be under pressure. Coaches get fired all the time. Coaches go on getting fired multiple times and then they win the league twice, and it just in no way even bothered by it. Right. That's a reality that you accept being anywhere in football. To me, it is a very quick ripcord to reach for when you think the plane's going down. And I think that there are so many things about, you lay the entire territory, the landmass that covers the Premier League over Texas, and it's contained within the boundaries of the state of Texas. MLS involves radically more domestic travel in league play, let alone continental play and cup competitions and all that kind of thing, than any European top flight league. And understanding that and having an appreciation for that, and to me, keeping a locker room together in the face of the results that this club has seen since they have been so rarely winless for so long, that is something that not every coach can do.
Yeah. Let's say, though, you get to the end of May. Austin's still in 12th place. Nancy would have an opportunity, let's say if he's interested in taking the job, to start installing his system during the kind of mini preseason that the team's going to have. Again, I could see Curtin maybe not being stylistically what Rhoda would look for in a coach, but I could see him being intrigued by what Nancy would bring. And I'm just wondering, like, at that point then, is it worth taking that kind of risk of resetting the locker room?
The system of play and the coaching, to me, is not the problem at Austin right now. The biggest one is injuries, period. The second one is roster issues. When you have a player like Basard Sabovic, who is your break glass sub, and he breaks more glass on his way in, that's a problem. I think you reset the locker room. Phil, I think you fire this coach going into the World Cup break. You are resetting the locker room in a much more dangerous way than in aggressively going after the opportunities provided by a World Cup break in the middle of the season to make some roster moves. That's the biggest issue. The biggest issue playing a role here is player availability, and secondarily, the specific players that they have available in specific areas of specialization. I would be more concerned to see the first move made out of the gate being fire the coach and destabilize the locker room, where all these guys suddenly have a new boss and none of them know how they're going to fare on the other side of an international break. So instead of taking the World Cup break as an opportunity to stay healthy, stay conditioned, gel together as a group, they're worried about, am I going to be at this club in 6 months? Do I even care? Do I watch out for my own conditioning and self-select out of games because I don't want to be there soon, in the way that we saw from Leo Väisänen, Sebastian Driussi? Do you lean into the destabilization effect that a new coach brings? Because those coaches will always have their guys. Bruce Arena did it at San Jose, brought in his specific guys. He has done it at every club he's been at for ages. If you are looking at coaches that want a more heavy-handed role in actually making the roster decisions,
Mm-hmm.
Unless the sporting director goes, that style is not going to just magically work. I prepped a thing I think is funny that's probably going to make somebody mad. Okay. EAFC costs less than $100. If things are so turnkey and easy to fix with replacing a coach, in EAFC, at least you can press whatever it is to pass instead of shouting it at your TV.
Okay. You did mention Bruce Arena, though. How is San Jose doing right now?
I don't know. I don't care about that club.
They're second in the West.
I don't care about that club, Phil.
Okay.
7 games in. It's
okay. Yeah.
Find me in August.
All right. Okay.
Find me in August.
He is what he is, but is he indeed like the MLS whisperer?
Yeah.
Again?
Well, let's look. Okay. Is he the MLS whisperer? Phil, I'd like to introduce into evidence exhibit A the 2025 season, Phil. What was San Jose doing at the end of that 2025 season? I believe they were looking at their own Jumbotron to say, looky here, we're looking at events elsewhere to see if we're going to make it into the playoffs. Oh, by gum, we didn't make it into no playoffs this year. I rest my case, Your Honor.
Right. Well, I mean, that team was much more weirdly built in 25 than they are now. So
we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I'm just saying.
People were saying 3 games into the season, fire the coach. I'm sorry, but I need more data to convince me that you need to fire a coach who has definitively not lost his locker room.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a big deal. That makes a lot of sense. And again, this is not wish casting. This is just, there's speculation. We have to visit the speculation. And with these candidates out there, it's something you got to think about, right? So you got to think about, do we take this opportunity in this moment to change direction, or are we deciding resolutely that we do not need to change direction? Like you're saying, we just need to get healthier and build on some of the good things that have happened in some of the recent games that we've seen.
Well, let me touch on
things
this
in the more recent games that we've seen.
Let me touch on this. To go further, people have said, I can not like Nico, get rid of Nico and Roto. You fire the sporting director, you're going to empty out all of the coaching staff that he brought in, and you are going through a much longer reset. Get ready to be miserable for a lot longer rather than, here's the thing. Last year was Nico's first year in the top job on this squad. And do you want to wait it out, tough through it, and las buenas y las malas, and see what the proper roster build and this coach growing into his role and maturity at this club produce? Or do you really, for the second time in as many years, tear everything down to studs and rebuild? I think the latter is a far, far riskier and more misery-inducing bet. But that's, maybe just me.
Maybe just you, but maybe not. Yeah. Well, again, we'll obviously monitor it. We'll see where things go. Starting with this match on Saturday against Toronto, they are going to be traveling nearly 4,000 miles. If you just consider one-way air traffic, again, just considering Louisville, then Toronto, then San Jose. A lot of traveling. So they are playing Toronto FC. I did reach out to John Molinaro. This is going to go up probably as you were hearing this on Saturday morning. Did a 3 questions with him. Also, I answered some audio stuff on the other side. He had a bunch of good questions about Austin FC that I was able to answer. Obviously, Josh Sargent was the kind of main target for Toronto's front office in the offseason. Kind of a weird saga with Norwich City, but they did end up getting him, and he's coming into form. Got that goal in that really, really strange game against Colorado a couple weeks ago. So he's going to be there. Georgi Mihailovic, though, he has a pelvic stress fracture. Ouch. So he's going to be out for about 8 weeks. John thinks that that's going to be pretty big hole for them to fill. They do have some players like, of course, Jonathan Osorio, who's been there for a while, Jose Cifuentes, a name you might recognize from past MLS stop in LAFC, and then Alonso Coelho. He's seeing them as being key in the midfield. And then Daniel Shalhoub, who you might remember from SKC and lots of matches against that particular team, is now part of Toronto, and he's also fitting right in. So they're a decent team. They're in a playoff spot in the East right now. They're getting some results. They're doing some good things, and they don't look like, the kind of emotionally bereft team that they were last year when they had two very expensive Italian players that were not doing much except vaping and creating locker room chaos. And they've expelled those players now, and they seem to be a much more cohesive team for it.
Yeah, I think it's something that I said to Nico in the post match a couple weeks ago, mentioned looking at opportunities to reset and good memories and that sort of thing from Open Cup, which unfortunately that opportunity to reset didn't happen. Maybe third time's the charm. That's what I'm feeling. That's what I'm hoping. And the level-headedness, seen on John Gallagher, seen on Nico in the midweek on Thursday. Here's the thing. My expectations are, let's see how they show up. I can't tell you for certain how these guys are going to show up and what the product of those meetings and those very serious and very blunt conversations among them may have been. With Irvin Torres available again, I hope to God his very calm, cool, collected, and relatively unaffected by a long career of injuries because he's just at the beginning of his career is something that helps tighten up the seams on the midfield going away to Toronto. Toronto's got a bunch of guys out.
Yep.
Austin's got some guys who are still out, very much.
Danny's going to be out.
Those expected. Yeah.
Owen may be back.
Owen may be back. Who knows?
Which would be great.
That'd be fantastic. For me, I am preparing for surprise of some sort. Okay. I am expecting for something to surprise me. I'm not saying good or bad. I am just expecting to be surprised because, Phil, I don't know what to expect, to be quite honest.
Right. And you do know part of what to expect because it is a noon start, which is weirdly early.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to be in your house to watch this match,
you can head over to Meanwhile, Phil. Kickoff's at 12, but starting at 11 a.m., Los Verdes is going to be out at Meanwhile, out on Promontory Point in the 4-4, as we say. They've got street parking, lot parking, great outdoor setup, lots of wonderful food truck options. It's very family friendly. There's a playground out there. Big, wide variety of both alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages available. But wear a hoodie, dress warmly, because the temperature is expected to drop precipitously all of a sudden tomorrow as we record this on Saturday. And I think that of the various partners that Los Verdes works with on watch parties, Meanwhile is one of the best, and especially for a fixture like this. It's a daytime game. If you're looking for something to do with the kiddos, it is a venue that their watch party team purpose chose specifically because of the time of day and because we know that folks with families want to be able to bring them.
You know what else it's got?
What else it's got?
It's got a mini soccer pitch.
Oh, yeah.
It's great. Distant relatives, really solid African-inspired barbecue. Really, really good.
So that's the watch party deets for you. 11 a.m. start time, 12 p.m. kickoff. There's a TIFO community meeting at 3 p.m. that afternoon at Meanwhile following the watch party. So if you've ever wanted to get involved on the TIFO side of things, hang out, stay around, and stay through and be part of the madness.
And I will still be in Corpus Christi. So I will miss you. But Meanwhile's great. Yeah, if you can get out there, by all means, get out there. It's a good place.
And I'll be handling At the Whistle tomorrow because you'll still be out of town. A quick second team update. I went to the second team game.
Of weather.
Yeah, against Dynamo 2, Dynamo Deuce. And that's always a spicy in-state derby. There were promising runs of play. Things were not going great. And then a couple minutes from the final whistle, rain and lightning delay took us out for a while. And up on the press porch, there was a tape guy from the Dynamo who had a DSLR set up and was recording stuff. And as the rain started to come down, I offered to help him scoot the table out of the way so his camera didn't get rained on. And he was like, oh, yeah, that'd be a good idea. And I'm like, I think it would be. Having been a videographer in your shoes, let me help you. And here. So when the rain really started to come down, everybody was ushered down below the bleachers or out to the locker rooms like he was. And I noted that after he had to abandon ship, as it were, he left his camera just kind of out in the rain, uncovered. And so I took the trainer towel that he had left draped next to it, but not on it, and draped it over the camera. Didn't want to touch any of his stuff, but Good Samaritan when it comes to people's digital devices and everything. So we wait out the we wait out the rain. A lot of people leave. Very few people left when play resumes. Austin equalize. And the most bizarre thing I've experienced at a third division soccer game happened when, after hearing the absolute dearth of Austin fans remaining, heckling Houston players, a tape guy from that team heckled the fans back, insisting that said fans were dumbasses and losers.
Wow.
For being here this late, cheering on a third division soccer team. Mm-hmm. And the goal was offside anyway, which it wasn't, by the way. And I turned around and I said, man, that is the most pathetic thing I've ever seen in my life. That I've ever seen in my life. All of these people are here because they want to be here. You're here because of the job that you decided to take.
Right.
He didn't have a comeback for that.
Oh, man.
It was bizarre. It was bizarre. Unfortunate loss in penalties, the penalty shootouts that are hated by sporting director Rodolfo Burrell. But yeah, it's crazy. Sometimes you buy that $12 ticket and you get an unexpected show. And that was one of those unexpected shows. Phil, to wrap things up, because you've got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. Do you have anything else?
I do want to. Yeah. Speaking of cameras. So this was a wild thing that happened over the course of the Miami match. Alex Rubio, who does the photography for Verde All Day, excellent photographer.
Yes.
He was shooting during warm-ups. He was shooting particularly Lionel Messi because, of course, cameras seem to be attracted to Lionel Messi. And he hit a shot that went wide of the target and right into the lens of Alex's camera and broke the lens, broke the hood, and then broke the shutter, it turns out. So really, really great video viral moment. Somebody caught it as it was happening. So he did get to share that, but he was out of camera. On the plane on the way back, I went ahead and I started a gig for him, and that has raised almost $2,700, which is going to not only replace the camera, but Alex has pledged that the surplus of that is going to go to Laundry Project. So I just want to give a big thank you to everybody who contributed to that. Again, it's just amazing to see the community come together when weird stuff happens to one of our own. So really proud of everybody for doing that. Thank you so much. What else do we need to cover this week?
Not much of anything. As we were recording, the injury report came out. Owen and Danny definitively out. Brandon, as we expected, out. But nobody else is listed as out or questionable.
Okay. So Urban Torres, maybe.
Maybe.
Okay. We didn't talk about San Jose at all, did we? They're coming midweek. Like they're gonna play before we record again. I think we covered San Jose, right?
Yeah, I think we covered San Jose. I don't know how we cover San Jose until we see how the team does against Toronto, which both of them will be in the rear view by the time we record next. And we'll be recording just in advance of Austin's first Texas Derby match of the season against Houston at home.
Oh, you know what else that's going to be?
What's that going to be?
Episode 100.
Yes! 100 on its
way. Are we doing
way.
something special, or
I mean, it'll be another
emergency. San Jose going to be special enough.
It'll be another emergency podcast, which is a special thing all its own.
Every time.
This is the best thing I've heard in the history of the 8 years I've been on this planet.